What is going on, guys? In this video we're going to be talking about Prince of Persia The Forgotten Sands. This is in fact my first game review, so comment down below, let me know how I do. Once you get towards the end of the video, make sure you stick around. So first of all, let's go through what the basic plot is of Prince of Persia The Forgotten Sands. This is technically the 5th Prince of Persia game, and it is the 4th Prince of Persia game following the original trilogy where you play as the Sands of Time Prince, played by, again, Yuri Lowenthal, of recent Spider-Man fame. The basic plot of this game is, this is set after the first Prince of Persia, after Prince of Persia The Sands of Time, and the prince has been sent by his father, who is now alive again thanks to the end of Prince of Persia Sands of Time, to go and meet with his brother to see just what's going on because his brother is at battle. Bearing in mind that this is a brother that has not been mentioned, seen in any of the original trilogy. However, what happens is the prince gets to meet where the brother is, the battle is going badly, and the prince's brother intends to release something called Solomon's Army, which is basically an army of sand monsters to help him win this battle. However, in doing so he releases an evil Jinn which overtakes his body and becomes the main bad guy of the thing. The prince manages to find a helpful Jinn called Razia, and together he works with her to basically defeat the evil monster, and through her gets his powers of time travel back that he had in the first Prince of Persia and the following sequels. So I'll be honest with you, the plot of this game is a little bit boring. The only word that I could think to describe it is irrelevant, because this game is set in between Prince of Persia 1 and Prince of Persia 2, however, doesn't play like it, isn't referenced into. If we're completely honest, the only reason that this game exists is because in 2010 or so there was a film based on the first game created starring Jake Gyllenhaal, and in that film the prince looks almost exactly the way he does in this game. This game was released to market upon the profitability of that film. Because of it being a midquel, we know exactly how this story ends, and we know that it can't actually be very dramatic or play any sort of, or have any sort of bearing on the overall arcing story, going into Warrior Within, or going into the Two Thrones. So again, the word that I would use to describe it is just irrelevant. There's a nice little brotherly bond going on throughout the game, but even then, this is not a brother that we've heard of before, it's not a brother we've seen before. The only talking that the two brothers really get to do is during battle, so they don't really get a chance to have any sort of character development. The brothers are at the start as they are at the end for the most part, so the story really wouldn't be a selling point for this game. But knowing that, let's talk about the gameplay. Now, even the gameplay of this is incredibly different. Despite the fact that it is a midquel, despite the fact that it is the same prince from the Sands of Time trilogy, it does not play anything like the Sands of Time trilogy. In those games, at most, you might fight 4 enemies at a time. You have a main hand weapon and an offhand weapon. You can vault over the enemies, you can grab the enemies, you can pick up their weapons. There are different combos depending on whether you press square or triangle. The combat is quite in-depth in those games. However, in Forgotten Sands, this is a button masher. The enemies, as you'll probably be seeing on screen around now, there'll be tons of enemies on screen at any given time. The only way you beat them for the most part is just pressing square. In terms of other variations upon the combat, there is a kick button which knocks away people's shields but doesn't really do any damage and disrupts the flow of combat, I found. You can jump on people's heads and then do an attack to try to emulate the way that it used to work in the older Prince of Persia games, but even that didn't feel right and it feels like it slows it down. Any attack that only focuses solely on one enemy seems a little bit redundant when the prince's normal sweeping sword attacks can hit as many people as in front of him, especially when throughout this game, numerous times you'll be thrown 20, 30, 40 enemies at any given time. The combat in the original Prince of Persia trilogy was complex. It was, I wouldn't say deep, but it was getting there. This is a button masher, plain and simple. The combat is the worst part of this game, but it is only half of the gameplay. The other half is the platforming. Now, the platforming in this game does feel different than the other Prince of Persias. It really does, it's floatier. The prince has got more special abilities, let's say. It feels less realistic. Now, let's be honest, the prince running along a wall, jumping off, climbing up, none of it was ever very realistic to begin with. But now the prince can run up one wall, jump off of it. As he hits the next wall, without falling, he can start some more momentum going up and run up again, and rinse and repeat that. Whereas before, in previous games, the prince would have to jump between them, not being able to wall run after initially leaving the floor, because that would be realistic. So the prince in this game is a superhuman, and then throughout the game you unlock more abilities to help traverse, and adds layers of depth to the traversal system. So the first one being that you can solidify water. What this means is that you will be introduced to sections where you have to solidify the water by holding L2 as you swing on these poles or climb up these beams or jump through these walls of water. So there'll be 2 walls of water. You'll have to jump through the first one, solidify the second so that you can rebound off of the solid one, back to that first wall of water, solidifying it again so that you can leap and... You can see how this could get in depth. The next power that you get after that is being able to repair things. However, what often happens is throughout the game, once you start getting that skill, is repairing one thing destroys another, and you'll have to repair one thing in midair while the thing that you've just jumped off crumbles, and then you'll have to combine this with the freezing the water, and you'll have to combine this with being able to micromanage all of these different things. So I'll be honest with you, the platforming in this game is really good. It's different. I prefer the original trilogy's movement for sure, because it feels weightier, it feels more realistic, but here I wouldn't say it's worse, I would just say it's different, and because of the different layers of depth that the game got throughout, I like it. It's cool. It's definitely the game's USP. It's the unique selling point. Now the third aspect beyond combat, beyond platforming, is going to be puzzles. This probably has the fewest puzzles of any of them. There are pressure plates throughout the game, just like the original trilogy, but here there is no having to stand on one while someone else stands on another, or you put something on like a crate to weigh down a pressure plate. There's none of that anymore. It is stand on pressure plate at most. In terms of layers of depth here, you might have to free some water that's triggered by that pressure plate, but for the most part all of the puzzles in this game are incredibly simple. And I think off the top of my head there is only 3. Let's talk about replay value. I do not believe there is a new game plus, but I'll be honest with you, I did not hang around long enough to find out. However, if there was, I don't think there would be much point. The game is incredibly short though, so if you did enjoy the platforming, or for some reason enjoy the combat, or even the story, you could do it again pretty rapidly. For example, I think the game is only about 4 hours long, and that's if you watch every cutscene, and you can skip. You can skip a surprising amount of the cutscenes in this game. Even the cutscenes that aren't even real cutscenes, where it's just sort of zooming around the room showing you the direction that you need to be heading, you can even skip that, so I bet the speedrun for this game is something crazy. It would be worth googling that. Next up, let's talk about sound. So, honestly, the music for this game was really noticeable. Now, often I don't notice the music in games, which is usually a negative in terms of the music for a game. Like if a game has amazing music, like for example Metal Gear Rising, you remember that. Like to this day I've got some of the Metal Gear soundtrack in my gym playlists. But this game, I became quite familiar with the music because of the fact that as I was like working on YouTube videos and things like that, I often had the game paused in the background which would play the music. And yeah, it was pretty good. It's always been a strong point of the Prince of Persia series, the music, in terms of the sort of Arabian Nights aesthetic of the first game, and then the sort of dark, grungier rock, like for example having Godsmack in the second game, and then the third game being a little bit of a mix of the two. Same sort of thing here, being a mix of the two, some sort of rock, some sort of like Arabian Nights style music. So, good enough, you know. Better than you would expect considering the quality of the rest of this game. So overall, my opinion of this game is, I don't think you need to play it. It's not something that's valuable in terms of your time, because if you just wanted to experience the original Prince of Persia trilogy, you would just play Sands of Time, Warrior Within, and The Two Thrones, and you could probably leave it there despite the fact that there are 5 Prince of Persia games of this era. If you go back even further, I think they go back to like 1989, so there are a lot more. But in terms of the Sands of Time trilogy, and then the 4th member, the Forgotten Sands, you could probably forget this Forgotten Sands. It's decent enough as it is. Like if you can pick it up for cheap like I did, like I think I bought it for £1.50, and 4 hours for £1.50 just to play a game, it's not bad. I wouldn't say you need to avoid it. It's not bad by any means, like I've played way worse. I didn't hate playing it, like I didn't mind while I was playing it. So I need to come up with a rating system for these games if I'm going to be reviewing them, so at some point I'll come up with that. But we'll consider this one a play it. You don't need to avoid it. I wouldn't say go out and buy it and make sure you play it right now. It's the best game ever. Definitely not. But if you were playing the Prince of Persia series and you wanted to play them all, I wouldn't avoid it. I would play it. But if you only cared about the things that you really should play, I would play the original trilogy, because that trilogy is worth going out of your way to play. This one I would not consider worth going out of your way to play. So yeah guys, I hope you enjoyed this review. It's my first, hopefully of many. I intend to start reviewing pretty much every game that I play and every film that I watch, so could be some fun. If you enjoyed this video, please drop the video a like, comment down below what you think of my first review, and I will see you guys later. Go and watch one of these videos.